Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scotty.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 78 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. This time I'm not joined by Ayaz, he is away. We're joined by special guest, former WBO Super-Featherweight champion of the world, Mr. Barry Jones. Barry, it's great to have you on. Thank you for filling Ayaz's shoes, and of course you're going to be with me for the duration of the show, so I'm happy to have you on.
Joe, anything for you, pal. Don't worry about that. I'm going to tell you, mate, he's sacked. That's it. No room for him anymore. I'll be a regular now. We'll do it every week. It'll be our show. Be fantastic.
Hey, I'll hold you to that. Don't say that. I'll definitely make you do it. Right, so we're going to start the show. It's, of course, the same way we usually do it. We're going to dive straight into part one. Part one being the review part of the show. We're going to start with a card that happened over in Puerto Rico, which I'm going to try and say with my Spanish sort of accent there. One fight to mention on the bill: former world champion DeMarcus Corley. He moved to actually his 28th loss. It's a shame. He's kind of gone on a little bit too long. He fought over in Puerto Rico against a guy who was only 9-0 with one draw. It was a unanimous decision in favour of his opponent, Giovanni Santiago. It went 10 rounds unanimously, as I say. So that one was for the vacant UBF International Super Lightweight title. So I know DeMarcus Corley, who, as I say, we had on the show a couple of weeks back, he's leaving Puerto Rico pretty unsatisfied. Moving over now to a bill that took place in Moscow, Russia. One fight to mention really on this bill. I thought we'd give a mention to Valery Brudov. He picked up a TKO in round one. It was only scheduled for 6. That's his 44th win now inside of 55 professional fights. His opponent was down 3 times in round one, and the referee stopped it. It was a strange one. The man only had one fight on his record, and it was a loss. So I'm not sure why he was actually in the ring with Brudov. That's really it for those fights. Moving over now to the big one, Barry. You were there, obviously, in attendance. Manchester Arena. It's been called many other different names as well. I think we should start with the undercard. I think we should start with the Nicola Adams fight. Obviously making a pro debut, the 2-time Olympic gold medalist took on Virginia Noemi Karkama, I think it might be said. Her record 4-2 with one draw going into that fight. What did you make of it, Barry?
Well, it was never about the opponent. It was just a homecoming. Well, as such, I know it was in Manchester. It was just the debut of a double Olympic gold medalist, which is the first time we've ever had that in the UK. It was just to get her out and get her introduced to a new audience. I guess it was billed as a new era. Obviously, BoxNation, teaming up with BT Sport, who's obviously a big network, and it was what we expected. She's not a big puncher. Women's boxing in general doesn't really produce a lot of big punchers, so it was always going to be points. And especially Nicola Adams, she's busy, very neat with her work, and she did what we thought she did. She took a couple of shots, which was nice. You wanted to be a little bit competitive, but she'll move on. And the only problem Nicola has, she's a fantastic fighter. She's a fantastic personality. And I think that's important for the women's game going forward, where there's a lot of people who not really in love with the women's game or don't really have much interest in it. And so you need stars, and you need more, and just as much as you need stars, which Nicola Adams is, so is Katie Taylor, you need, more importantly, rivals. And that's also with Natasha Jonas also just turning over now. That will help the women's sport because she is a rival of Katie Taylor. So that'll push the sport forward a little bit further. But listen, Nicola Adams, she boxed well. And I think her next outing now is the 13th of May in Leeds. She'll be, obviously she's from Leeds, and that will be the first time she boxed in Leeds since she was 13 years of age, I think. And I think that makes it almost about 20 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. It's she did what she had to do. She was a little bit over eager, I think, in some parts of it, but that's understandable. I know that she She put on obviously a dominant performance. It was good to see. I actually really like Nicola Adams. I've got a soft spot for her. I've had one for quite a while, and I'm very happy that she's moved into the pro ranks now, especially with Frank Warren as well, which makes it very interesting. And as you alluded to there, Natasha Jonas has turned pro as well. A little piece of news there. We're not actually going to be doing the news segment this week, but Barry's just told us something there, which is always good. Also on that bill, we're going to mention the debut of Daniel Dubois. I think I'm saying his name right there. He was in there against he was in there against Marcus Kelly, 1-0. Well, to be honest, it was pretty hard to believe that Marcus Kelly was an unbeaten pro. I know he'd only had the one fight, but he was in awful shape, Barry. Let's be honest.
Well, the problem is he comes to fight. And I'm not just because I work for a party for one of the networks. I'm not going to make out that it was a competitive fight for Daniel Dubois and he's in danger of losing his debut. But Marcus Kelly can come to have a go. The problem is he's just not very good. And more of the problem is than that is he looked in terrible shape and he was very short. Where Daniel is something like 6'6", Marcus Kelly is like 5'10" or something like that. It was ridiculous. So it was a bad choice the first opponent. I'm not a promoter. I wouldn't want to tell people how to do their jobs, but they would have been better off getting some guy who was 6'3" and useless, 6'3" and negative. They would have been better off a guy who looked the part but actually can't fight. That's what they would have been better off doing. I think Daniel Dubois at 19 years of age and a heavyweight, which I think when you promote heavyweights, you promote them different to any other boxer and any other weight because there's people say it's all the time. There's boxing and then there's heavyweight boxing, and it's almost like a different sport how you promote them because they can be worth hundreds of millions of pounds to people, to themselves, and also to people who promote them and manage them and people involved in them. They are your pension fund if you have a good heavyweight in your camp. So you nurture them a bit more carefully than you would any other weight, and that's so. He was never going to fight a guy who was going to beat him. But for people who don't know anything about boxing, anyone who was seen now, it was a little bit farcical that the guy was just so much smaller and fat. Let's be honest. I don't feel sorry for Marcus Kelly, but he didn't look the part. You need someone who looked the part but couldn't fight. That's what you needed, ideally. And I sort of say this because really, it's meant to be a sport, and any fight like that shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be boxing people above your level, but you shouldn't be boxing people who are not good enough for you either. But that's not how pro boxing works in bringing up prospects, I guess.
Yeah, I think obviously Daniel Dubois didn't take too long to get rid of him. Obviously it was a first round TKO. As I said, he moves to 1-0. A good start for him nonetheless. I think it was a bit frustrating because it was over so quickly, but I will say, you're right there, he did come to give it a go, Marcus Kelly. Not many times you see a guy in there, he knew he was up against it, and he just went for it from the first bell. It reminded me a tiny little bit of Dorian Darch when he took on Anthony Joshua. He just went for it. He knew he wasn't going to win on points or anything like that. I do quite like to see that from time to time. Also moving up that undercard.
Dorian Darch can fight a bit. He's not a bad little fighter, so... But yeah, it was what it was. He hit him as soon as he hit him with the right hand. So he hit him on the back of the head and then side of the head, and Kelly he sort of none of this, and that was it. Then really, it was always going to be like that. So except for him, if he didn't look out so much out the shape and the size, if it wasn't so vast, then people would have been raving about Dubois' performance rather than say, well, I could have beat him. That's what most people would have been saying watching at home, and that was the only negative for him. But he's a 19-year-old kid. A baby in any terms, but as a heavyweight, he literally is in his infancy. So, we'll see how he develops.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely an exciting future he has. Also on that undercard, Paul Butler picked up his 24th win inside 25 fights. Obviously, that one lost to Zolani Tete. Obviously, he picked up a TKO in round 4. It was only scheduled for 6. His opponent, Carlos Ruben Dario Ruiz, who actually had a record of 21-9. Decent little record now, 21-10. Paul Butler's a fighter who, to be honest, Barry, I know you've been pretty high on since losing to Tete in pretty bad style, to be completely honest. He hasn't really stepped into that kind of level. He's dropped down a level, and he's really fighting opponents that we don't really know and don't really want to see him in with. It's a bit frustrating. I think they're finding it hard to get him a decent opponent. Why is that, Barry? He's been in these fights now.
I half agree with you and I half don't. I think you're right. He is boxing people below his level, but he has boxing decent guys in those, what was it, 5 or 6 fights since the Tete defeat. He's boxing some decent opponents, but they're below the level where he is. I think Paul Butler I don't mean he's the best boxer, the best fighter we have in the UK by any stretch of the imagination, but for natural talent, he is one, if not the best of natural talent. He's so naturally skillful. Any camp would have him. When he went to Joe Gallagher's gym, Joe Gallagher must have just been, probably couldn't keep a smile off his face because he got, "Will you train me?" Of course I'll train you. Why wouldn't I want to train you? You're fantastic. And I think he could have done a world title again, but yeah, you're right. He's tread water since the Tete fight. He needed a couple of confidence-winning fights back because the Tete, it was a devastating knockout, but for me, psychologically, you can get over it. I've never been knocked out, but I mean, you can get over a knockout because you get caught with a good punch. That's boxing. But when you're a boxer, when you're a master boxer like Butler is, and you get outboxed, that's psychologically worse, I feel, because you can't, when you're the guy who always has an answer for what comes your way, and you can't answer nothing back, then he literally just said, I'm beating you at the best at your game. So that's your best thing you ever do. The boxing, the moving, the boxing, the picking your punches, and I bested you in everything you can do. And then that can mess with your brain. That takes away your confidence. And I think Butler went back flying. He had a couple of fights, and he needed to step into world level cricket. And I agree with you in that much. But I think I've heard, and this is no secret, the rumours are there that the James McDonald fight is very, very close to being made. And it's a very hard fight for both. I think it's a very hard fight for Butler. James McDonald you can't underestimate his engine. One of the most underestimated and underrated fighters we have in the UK. And if that fight can be made, it's a fight that Butler can win for sure. But it's a hard fight for him because again, but McDonald's massive. But I think Butler also now has grown into bantamweight rather than when he won the title back in 2014 against Stewie Hall. I just don't think he was a natural bantamweight, and it was a big risk moving up at that time. But now he's grown into the weight, and I think he would probably I'm not saying he'd start a favour because McDonald would be on maybe his 4th or 5th defence, something like that. Just off the top of my head, but it'd be a good fight and a fight that Butler could if he's on form, he'd be good enough to win.
Yeah, that is definitely a fight I'd like to see. And as you say there, Jamie McDonald really not kind of getting that recognition. People forget he's actually Britain's longest reigning world champion out of all the current champions. So, he definitely, in my opinion, would start the favourite in that one. But it's definitely a real good fight. I would like to see it. But a good win there for Paul Butler. Go on, Barry. Yeah,
the problem, I'm digressing a little bit here. The problem McDonald had is when he won the title, someone else was already WBA champion at the same time. So, that farcical thing that WBA have with having 2 champions at every weight almost, that was a problem Butler had. So when he won the title, he didn't get any recognition for it. The same as Scott Quigg a little bit, got slated for winning a world title, which is crazy because someone else was already a world champion. It happened with Anthony Collar, but he didn't really get the stick that other fighters have had because Anthony's just the loveliest man on the planet. But again now with Nathan Cleverly, he's a world champion, but there's already a WBA world champion in place. So it takes the shine off them, and they don't get the recognition that they expect because of that. And it's not the boxers' fault; they're just fighting, but it's the organisation's fault by adding titles onto weight divisions that we don't need. And that's totally off the topic. Sorry, Joe, but it has to be said, my son.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I think we should also throw Lee Haskins' name in that hat as well. He's a man that, for me, is a little bit underappreciated, and obviously, being in and around that mix and getting the better of most of those guys, he definitely deserves a little mention.
Well,
there.
Lee Haskins, I worked on a fight at ESPN. It was a late notice gig, and he got beat in Belgium against Stefan Jamoy.
Okay,
who was a good fighter for the European title. And he was brilliant. It was one of the most exciting fights you would see. I'm exaggerating that, but it was a really exciting fight. He just held his ground and swung with his Jamal, and he got stopped. But Haskins has got criticised, and rightly so. In the past, he had a turn off TV style. I mean, he was so negative in his movements because he's a clever guy, but he's too negative and too scrappy in his work because he tries to box like Nazim Hamid without actually having. He's a good fighter, but he hasn't got it's quite the same skills as Naz. So some large fights have been scrapping. He got criticised for that. But then the Jamoy fight, he was really exciting, and then he sort of in the Butler fight, in the Huey Hall fight, which he won, I thought, he went back to that same style of being a little bit too negative, and even though it's effective and you do what you do to win first before you try to please the crowd, but that's why he doesn't get mentioned in a lot of conversations, because he's a guy who's hard to beat, but he might think the joint out. And I sympathise, I empathise with that, because I didn't have the same style, but I was that sort of fighter as well, where, I was only an exciting fight if the other guy made it exciting, because I was never going to make it exciting, because that means I'm going to get hit, and I didn't like getting hit. So, I understand where he's coming from, but I think that's why he gets left out in all these conversations, because of his style.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with that. But moving up this undercard, it was quite a big card, as I say. Zolani Tete was supposed to be on it, but it didn't end up happening. I was a little bit sceptical about that fight taking place from the get-go, to be honest. He's been out for quite a while. Do you know any more on that, Barry, why it didn't happen?
Yeah, I do. It's moved to a week Saturday, whatever that is, 22nd of April to Leicester.
Okay, that's the Tommy Langford
the Tyrone Earth and Langford and the card, and Tyrone Earth versus Joe Hughes. Yeah, so it's moved to that card, which is if it gets moved again, then there is a worry about. But I think it's just been moved because of what with the TV commitments and how many fights were going to be shown, and this card was already big enough as it is, and he doesn't sell tickets. I think that's another factor so there was no point in keeping him on a show.
Yeah.
I would have thought. I don't know the ins and outs, but I guess that would probably be what it was. And also, there's more space as well to show his fight on the Leicester bill, because this Manchester bill was with what was it, 3 title fights and a couple of good 10-rounders. So I think that was the reason.
Packed bill, yeah. Also on the bill, Zelfa Flash Barrett. I think he's the Brown Flash now. He moved to 16-0 with a TKO in round 6. He had his man down in the first round. As well, a decent win there for Flash Barrett, to be honest. Mark Heffron moved to 15-0 with a TKO in round 2 at Super-Middleweight over Achilles Cesaro. He came to give it a go a little bit as well. Jimmy Kelly picked up his 21st career win, points win over 10 rounds against Rick Godin. I didn't actually watch that fight, to be honest. Barry, was it worth watching? Was it a good fight?
Yeah, it was an interesting fight. I think it was a good fight to watch. They both committed themselves. Rick Godin is an underestimated opponent. He took the Gary Corcoran fight a few years back, very, very late notice, and he lost, but he pushed Corcoran all the way, and he did the same with Kelly. I think I had about Jimmy Kelly by a punt in the end, or 2 punts or 1 point. Well, I think that was I commentated on the undercard for BoxNation before they went over to BT, and I did the Kelly Godin fight. I had Kelly just winning it. But it was close, and I just think Godin at the end, he's a counter puncher, he's an effective counter puncher, and he's better than what he looks. He just didn't do enough work, and I think Kelly's probably not engine, because they both had good engine. I think Godin hit Kelly with some cracking shots, really did, some beautiful uppercuts as well from range. Kelly was a little bit busier, and that's what not put in his favour. But it was a good fight. It'd be a lovely return. A lot of the crowd were booing, but I think that's because Godin sold a lot of tickets. I think they're really well, which, again, in these big bills, sometimes they sell so many tickets and they're on too early. And people forget it. Years ago in these massive bills, I boxed on Ben and Eubank in Old Trafford in '93, and I was first on. There was only 5 fights on the bill in total. That was it. Obviously, there was no network TV then, so it was on ITV. They only showed the main fights, but. So they didn't have to have a big stack bill, but they sold the arena on the main card, and that's how they sold it on. And then obviously the cheap undercard, I would imagine, but and then the rest of you sell tickets, but it's almost negligible what you're going to sell for a big arena then. And these cards in the modern era of promoting for boxing now, it's a stacked card of 15, 20 fights or 12 fights, and it's no good for the kids. It's nice to get on, but you're selling tickets to all your friends. They turn up at 7 o'clock, get it early, and you've been on at 5 o'clock. It's not really. it don't inspire you, when you're on it, when you're boxing in front of it. And I turn up for work sometimes, to commentate on a fight, and I'm sat down writing things on a piece of paper, and there's only me and the officials in the arena, and there's a pro fight on. It's horrible. So people don't see that side of the sport. Or when the TV's done and everyone's wrapping up and going home, you're leaving, and there's people walking into the ring to fight, and it's horrible. And I've been both sides of that, and I've been top of the bill. I've been last on at 1 o'clock in the morning. I've gone out the ring in a 10-rounder with a cauliflower ear hanging off my head, and I've been first on as well when everyone's getting changed into their dinner suits because it was that early. It's a horrible. People don't see that side of the sport. But yeah, so the Kelly fight and the Godin fight, which I've rambled on about. This is working with Steve Bunce too much. Yeah, I ramble on. I go pop with abstract.
Yeah, I'm going to start coming in with the 30 seconds, Bow. That's all you got.
Yeah, you've got to listen. I know, sorry, mate. That Godin Kelly fight it's a good rematch, but it needs to be a cheap undercard or something. It's a really good fight for it. Yeah. I know it's a shame that the main card didn't turn out the results that didn't go the other way, because then they could have potentially boxed for the vacant British title, which is obviously not vacant at the moment. Thank you, Joe. Move on, sir. It's your podcast.
Also on the bill, Jack Catterall. He's been criticised a little bit for being in boring kind of fights recently. He turned it round. It was a decent fight, this one. It only went 3 rounds. TKO victory for Jack Catterall. He moves to 18-0. Martin Geffen was in there. He picked up his 9th loss. It was a bad night for him. His record now 28-9 with 1 draw. It was for the WBO Intercontinental Super-Lightweight title, which Jack Catterall defends there. Geffen was down in the 2nd round as well. It was good to see Jack Catterall in a fight which wasn't boring. I don't want to knock him too much because he is very, very good. We shouldn't get too critical because he's very talented. Some boxers, he's very hard to beat. He couldn't really miss him with the jab at some points. I think Geffen is a little bit over the hill now, in all honesty, but a good win there for Catterall, a good name on his record as well. Barry, what was your thoughts on that? Yeah,
well, first of all, I think Geffen's been good, but he's been good at the lightweight. So he's too small. He's too small and too long in the tooth, and he didn't quit. Well, he sort of quit. He knew his career was over that night. Geffen, you could see he was on his knee, and he just looked at the referee and said, "No, it's enough now, mate." And he won't fight again now. Or he'll have 2 years out, and he might come back and a silly mistake, but that's enough for him now. And so it was good matchmaking for Catterall, because it was on paper, because Geffen just had a good win with John Wayne Hibbett, of course, like welterweight, so that sort of gives him some sort of credibility. But he was only ever a lightweight, Geffen, and he knows that. But Catterall's a talent, but he's been too lazy. That's why some of the fights haven't been as exciting. He had 2 really good wins against Nathan Brough and also Tommy Stork, and he looked supersonic. And you go, this is the start of the future. And then he showed some immaturity and some frustration and some childish behaviour in the way he sort of reacted, and always got disqualified for a couple of fights. But he's a talent. He just needs a bit more urgency in his work. He's sharp, and he needs to be sharp all the time. And when he is sharp, like you saw Saturday, how good is he? He's really good, and he's going to have to be good, because the British champion, Tyrone Nurse, is a hard man to beat, and obviously that's the fight that's going to get made now. No, Tyrone Nurse is over on BT as well as Jack. So that's going to be a fight that's going to be made. He's going to be at his best to beat. He might be good enough to beat Nurse, but Nurse is good enough to beat him also. So he needs to be sharp all the time, and that's the level he's at now. So it's nice to see a good performance, and I'm sure his next fight will be for the British title.
Yeah, definitely a fight
I'd like to see. 38 seconds.
Definitely a fight I'd like to see. I'm going to leave the Liam and Liam clash till last on this bill. I want to talk about the Terry Flanagan, the Terry Flanagan fight just before we get onto that. The last. Well, it wasn't an undercard fight, but the last fight before we get onto the Liam versus Liam. Terry Flanagan moved to 33-0. Obviously, we know he's got the longest winning streak of any British boxer current at the moment. Another defence of his WBO World Lightweight title. I've got to be honest, I was watching it. He took on Peter Petrov, I should just mention, 38-4 with 2 draws going into this in his 45th career outing. Peter Petrov was a good opponent. I was watching it, but I got to be honest, sometimes watching the fight I kind of zoned out a little bit. I think that, and I did say it on last week's podcast, I think that the way Flanagan won his world title against Zepeda, it wasn't really how he wanted to win it. Then after that, he kind of came into the ring against Magdaleno he seemed seemed to be a bit angry. He wanted to show people that he deserved that title, and he did a proper job on him. Real good performance. Since then, he's been a little bit lackluster, and I think this was a fight where I don't want to be too harsh on him, because I know Petrov has kind of got that fighting style to make you look a little bit lackluster. He did the job. He did really well. You know, he won pretty much every round in there for me, and he gets another win, but. He just didn't really capture. He didn't really catch light the fight at all during the whole 12 rounds for me.
For me, I think Petrov. It was always just whether it was. I don't think it was a mandatory. It was a strange choice of opponent, because again, unless you can blast him out of there, you're never going to look good against Petrov. Even if you beat him convincingly, which Terry did, he beat him convincingly enough, and you're never going to look good against Petrov, because he has the sort of style where he always fires back. He fires in combinations. He's awkward. He's tricky, and he's learned that, because he's boxed at light welterweight as well as lightweight. So and he's not a massive fella, so he knows how to hold his own. I was telling people, if Terry's not his best, he'll get beat. And I think Terry needs to move up in weight. I think he's too tight for the weight. Listen, I don't know personally if he makes the weight, but he looks too big for the weight for me for a start. And you're right, he needs to be angry. Like, Terry's quite military in his work. I think he trains like a soldier. And he fights like a soldier. You stick to instructions, which is great if you're a trainer. But if you're watching from home, you sometimes want to see a guy use a little bit more of his, take a few risks, or do this to sell himself to the crowd, like you're saying, to get a little bit every round same-ish with Terry, isn't it? That's the problem he has. I'm being critical of a guy because he's a world champion, but he's very effective what he does, and Terry's a nightmare for anyone at his weight right now. He gives everyone a fight. I'm not saying he beats Mikey Garcia or even Jorge Linares. He gives them a fight. That's for sure. He really does. He's a hard man to beat, because he's military in his approach. Military in the ring. He will just do what he's told, and he'll stick to his plan, and he'll hold his ground, and he'll go down fighting. That's the way he is. But sometimes you want to sometimes change a little bit off his own accord. He'll go off plan a little bit. That little bit of specialness that great fighters show, they go off plan and take that little bit of risk. Terry won't do that. Again, if you're a trainer, you love him for that, and that's what you want in your boxer. But sometimes for people watching at home or in the crowd, it doesn't inspire you to get on your feet and jump like a lunatic. But listen, that's what's made him 33-0. That's what's made him WBO lightweight champion of the world, and that's what's possibly going to make him an opponent for Vasyl Lomachenko, which is just a crazy thought, but. That was it. So it was a good win, but it wasn't the opponent that he wasn't that sexy name that we wanted, and it wasn't an opponent that was ever going to make him look good.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk too much on this, but I think now with Crawler losing his title, I know that it's kind of like the Battle of Manchester. I think that obviously we all know Crawler's got a bigger profile, but without the titles, I think it really makes this as close to 50-50 that both parties will see. I think that Eddie Hearn or Crawler and his camp, whatever, need to realise they're not champions anymore. Yeah, they do have the bigger profile. That only counts for so much. But the champion being Terry Flanagan, I'd love to see that fight happen. Not that I think it will happen, but I think that's a brilliant fight. I'd like to see that fight next. And I will say, I think Mikey Garcia is the man at lightweight at the moment. But I think that if Linares was to take on Flanagan, especially over here, I think that... in my honest opinion, I think that as long as he doesn't fight the way he fought Crawler the other week, because that was pretty much perfect, as long as he doesn't fight like that, I think Terry Flanagan's got a good chance. People may criticise me for that, but I honestly do. I think he's got a good style.
Listen, Linares is skillful as they come. He's brilliant. But people have made him out with the two Crawler fights, and that's what people have only ever seen him against Crawler, let's be honest. Most people have only ever seen him against Crawler, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Why would you go looking for Jorge Linares? But when he turned pro, he was the star. He was going to be the guy who took boxing forward. He was the one. Wow, Linares is special, and he can be beat. He can be beatable. He's shown that in the past. He can be hurt. The Crawler hurt him as well in the first fight. I don't think he's unbeatable. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, even the Kevin Mitchell fight, I think that if that was Flanagan in there that night, that would have been I think Flanagan would have beat him there. So his styles make fights, I think, and the way Crawler fights, which is great and effective, and he fights a little bit in straight lines, but Crawler wins fights on. He's got skill. Crawler, of course, you can't be a world champion and not have skill, but I mean, his will to win, Crawler, gets him over the line. His determination, his will to win, it's really up there with the best. That little facet of his game, that's what gets him through.
but also against a stylist and a punch picker like Linares, it's also a bread and butter for him. You know, it's always going to be a hard fight for Linares because Conor is so tough and is so game and is so committed, but also coming forward in straight lines a little bit will suit Linares down to the ground, where Terry's would frustrate Linares a bit more. Like you said, I think it was the footwork, then in and out with the footwork, not committing and not over committing. You know, Linares would have to be on top of his game. He said, "Listen, the fight Linares goes in favour, but yeah, you got actually. I can make a good case for Terry to win. Linares would go in favour because he has the bigger resume and the better resume, and you've got to make the point there. So Terry is always going to be not. You know, he's never going to be on top of people's list on the lightweight division, where Mikey Garcia and Jorge Linares are around. That's the truth.
Yeah, no, definitely a fight. Again, both of those fights, Crawler and Linares, I'd like to see Terry in and amongst that if he doesn't end up moving up to 140. But definitely good fights. Definitely a bright future for Terry.
Yeah.
Moving over now to the so-called main event, I guess you could say. Liam Williams, 18-0 with one draw going into this fight. Liam Smith, 24-1 with the one draw as well. This one was for the vacant interim WBO World Super-Welterweight title, which for me, I don't know, Barry, you might be able to tell me this, but it seems like this title's kind of come out of nowhere. I'm not sure if this... I didn't know about it a few weeks ago. And it's,
the interim title the interim title's always been a thing. And it used to be a thing where when the champion was injured or unable to defend his title for a long period of time, then you would, to keep the title busy and to keep the immediate challengers 2 and 3 busy, it would be an interim title fight. Because you still have a champion, and then you would get a nominal belt, but you wouldn't get to keep the belt, and you wouldn't be put in the record books as a champion. Obviously, you wouldn't go down in history as a champion, but then you get to fight the champion next when he's able to be. But also you defend that interim title, and if the champion somehow never fights again, then you're automatically elevated to 100% world champion. But now. The game's changed now, hasn't it? With all these titles, regular champions, super champions, and now interim champions are now at a regular scene as well. It's ridiculous. But that's the way the sport is. That's the way it is. People up high deal with this, and us guys down here just got to wipe our chops and get on with it. But it didn't need a title, this fight. This is a British title fight. With two guys who are better than that level anyway. But this is what it is. In the 80s, this is a British-European title fight, and that's exactly what it was for me. And it was a great fight on paper, and it turned out to be a very, very good fight as well on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think that obviously Smith coming in overweight, that was a little bit unprofessional in all honesty. I just want you to do one sentence on that, Barry. What did you think about the weight situation with Smith? Obviously we knew that the belt ended up only being on the line for Williams, but we're pretty much sure that it's really looking like Canelo will vacate, so they will end up being a world champion, a full world champion. So with that knowledge, you'd have thought that Smith would have come on weight for that fight, surely.
I don't think it was a preconceived idea that he wasn't going to come in weight. I just think he made a mistake, and then I don't know this. It's just me guessing. My theory that I just think that a few days in, they said we can't make the weight. We're going to get down to a pound, so we'll try. But don't go killing yourself to make the weight now. It is what it is. Because to be honest, if he wins the fight, which he did anyway, he doesn't become interim champion. But if Miguel Cotto is the next fight to whoever won. He'll get the Cotto fight for the vacant title. It just won't be a defence. So he still gets the Cotto fight if the Cotto fight's available. So he didn't lose anyway, really. He just doesn't get to be an interim champion and then upgrade to a world champion, sat at home. That's all that happens there. But and it's not. This is not a dig at Liam Smith. This is boxing. There's too many boxers not making weight. Now there's 3 things a boxer has to do, and these 3 things are very difficult things to do. But it's only 3 things they have to do: train, make weight, and fight. That's all you've got to worry about in your whole life, really, in your job. 3 things. No, any other people have got a job, only got 3 things to worry about. Then you're on easy street. But these are 3 hard things. Making weight's hard for every boxer. Training is incredibly hard, and fighting can be hard as well sometimes. If you don't do the 2 things properly, first of all, then the 3rd thing is a very difficult thing to do. But listen, Liam Smith, it's the first time he's done this, so you've got to give him a little bit of leeway. He isn't usually a consummate professional in what he does, and he's a hard man to beat. I don't think he's technically the best fighter on the planet, but he gives everyone a hard fight, and he gives Liam Williams an extremely hard fight, I think, Saturday night.
Yeah, obviously, Williams, we hadn't really seen him past that British level. This was really, we were going to find out for the first time how good he was. Liam Smith, he's kind of been on that world level. Didn't really fight anyone legitimate world level apart from Canelo, and obviously he come up short. But he did put in a good performance, I think some people forget. Liam Williams.
But he put in a stubborn performance. I think he did a stubborn against Canelo. It was admirable what he did. He stepped up leagues above what he'd ever been used to, and wasn't found wanting. In effort, he tried his best, and nothing. And he didn't make anything easy for Canelo, but he did lose. Well, not every round on my card, as members went on in the commentary, but I think. He lost. I think some judges gave him 2 rounds, which is great, in all in all. But when this fight was made, I said, everyone saying it was a 50-50 fight, and I said, no, it's not. Liam Smith goes in a favourite. Not a big favourite, but a favourite. He had to. Because his wins have been slightly better than Williams' wins. Not by much, but all I said was, anyone on Williams' record, Smith would beat. But all the wins on Smith's record, Williams would also beat. That's the way I looked at it. There was no one on anyone's record except for Canelo that none of these boxers couldn't beat each other. So that's why it made it a very, very close fight. But it wasn't a close fight on the night.
No, not for me. I think that
Williams
started very, very well. Williams was dominating. The cut that opened on Smith, which was on his right eyebrow, which was in round 3, that seemed to really wake him up and bother him. It seemed like he was just kind of cruising but losing during some of those early rounds. It just made me think he may be saving something for the latter part of the fight, but he just wasn't able to work Williams out really. Williams as well, and I've seen Williams before. He's kind of been criticised a little bit for throwing the same sort of shots. I think he was mixing it up very well, very very cleverly throughout, especially the early rounds. Obviously, at the time of the stoppage in round 9, the end of round 9, Liam Smith was coming on a little bit stronger. I don't think I could say that Williams was in any kind of trouble. I don't think he'd been hurt properly, but the tide was turning, even if it was just for a couple of rounds. At the time of the stoppage, Liam Smith was fighting a lot better than he was earlier on in the fight. Obviously, in the corner at the end of round 9, we've seen by some replays it looked like a head went in. It didn't look intentional, but also some people are saying that that a punch had opened it up just a few seconds before the head came in from Smith, which opened the cut on Williams' eye, obviously. You've probably seen some decent camera angles. Barry, how did you see the cut opening?
Well, I didn't actually. It was very hard to see when the cut started. I think there was a cut before Liam went in with the head, and I'm not saying he did it on purpose, but he flew in with the head. He really did. Whether it was just trying to get low for a body shot, he flew in with the top of his head. He just banged Williams in the face, and Williams is physically hurt. I've been headbutted. It hurts more than a punch in many ways. So I mean, outside, not inside the ring, it's horrible being headbutted. So Williams was dazed, whether it was the cut or on the chin, whatever it hit him, but it hurt him. So that's why he backed up, because he got headbutted. So that should the referee. I don't want to criticise referees too much because it's a horribly hard job. It's a no-win situation when you're a referee. But it was right in front of the referee. The referee should have said something about the head. The heads were going in all night, by the way, and Williams was just as much to blame for it as well, because he was going in with his head, not aggressively, but they were touching heads where they were both leaning forward, and neither one of them cared. So they were lucky not to get cut early on in the fight because of heads. I think Smith's cut was from a punch, and I think Williams was cut, but that head went in, and it did look bad, and then the blood really started to flow. So whether it's caused another cut or ripped the eye further, then you would have thought that would have been a means to stop the fight, or get him a warning at least, because he flew him with the head. You can't, whether you do it on purpose or accident, when you just go flying in head first, so obviously, and the referee's got to really pull him up, whether he gives him a warning or public warning or disqualifies him or just says, listen, next time you're out. He needed to be told, I think, but he got listen. He's just doing what he's doing. Smith, he's just trying to win a fight, and in a tough fight, you do whatever you do to win, and he won, and he did win. And I think Williams, that was on his feet to win the fight. That's all he had to do. and he didn't look hurt to me. He looked hurt in that little moment because he was dazed by the headbutt. But I think all in all, he was tiring. I think Gary Lockett was being too nice saying he was tiring, and that was to justify the stoppage. I think Gary felt guilty. He looked after his fight, but he felt a little bit, my kid was doing so well here. But I think Williams would have got a second win, even if he would have won the last 3 rounds. I think he would have still won by a point on my. Well, he wouldn't have. Actually, that's on my card, but my card means shit. It was on the judges' cards. He was amazing. He only 1 round up, and I can't see for the life of me where they got that fight so close. Now, Smith was coming on strong, and listen, Smith is a tough man. He's as strong as anything. But, he did leave it too late to push, and I think that was down to Williams throwing the double jab, the little feints with the feet, changing direction as Williams was, and also Williams wasn't punching flat. He was punching on different angles. And that, for that tight defence that the Gallagher gym to use, it's a flat defence. So you throw flat punches, a straight left and a straight left hook or whatever, they can block all those shots, but you've got to punch at a different angle, to punch through the guard, through the arms. And Williams was doing that to perfection. And listen, Smith made it a hard fight. Smith gives everyone a hard fight. I've said this before, but Williams was winning for me. He had to stay on his feet to win on my card. And I think he would have nicked one of those rounds. I don't think Smith would have won the last. I don't think Smith would have won the 9th, 10th, 11th, and the 12th. I don't think he would have won 4 rounds out of the last 4. I think Williams would have had a push and got a little bit of a second win somewhere. But listen, on the judges' scorecard, that would have been enough. If Smith would have won 3 of the last 4 rounds on the judges' scorecard, he would have won the fight anyway. And then there would have been worse controversy then, because everyone thought that Williams was winning. So, it's a shame all happened, but you can't believe this. People are saying Liam Smith just jumped in with the head on purpose because he was panicking. I don't quite believe that. I think it was his fault. I think the cut was worse or caused because of that head, most certainly, and he should have been warned for the headbutt. Whether it was intentional or not, only Smith can answer that. But, if he felt he was coming on strong, why would he do that in the first place? He didn't need to do that. And he genuinely believed that he was going to stop Liam Williams. For us guys, we couldn't see it. Only the boxers really know how they feel.
Yeah, I think the scorecards were real bad. I don't think Smith would have gone on to stop him, to be honest. But yeah, it's a real horrible conclusion, really, to what was a real good fight for many parts of the fight. So.
But the hard part is now. The hard part is now everyone wants a rematch.
It needs to happen.
But why does Liam Smith want a rematch?
No.
If there's a chance that he can fight for the vacant world title now, that he can make weight. They said that was a one-off, and there's a Cottle fight looming. Why does he want to fight Liam Williams when he can fight Miguel Cottle for more money? Whatever they are offering for Williams, he can always fight the Cottle fight. He might not want to fight. Listen, he might want it because I know. Just out of personal pride, he might want it. And he said they've got 2 tough kids there. I mean, tough, and they're tough inside and outside of the ring. I think they're both tough kids. They want to fight each other again. And Williams obviously won it because he thinks he was winning, and like we all did, and he thinks he can beat Smith. And Smith might want to show the world, certainly Britain, that he can beat this kid. But what it did show is there wasn't a class in golf. There wasn't a golfing class on him. There's nowhere near that. And I think Williams, in many ways, come of age on Saturday night and showed us all, and any doubters, that listen, he's good enough to compete at the level that Liam Smith is competing at.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And just to wrap that fight up there, the interim WBO titles, obviously, it remains vacant. It wasn't on the line for Smith, as we said. So Liam Williams now 16-1, his first loss, which was very, very harsh. He's obviously also got the 1 draw. Liam Smith now 25 wins, 1 loss and 1 draw. But we definitely do need to see it again. Last question on that one, Barry. You got 20 seconds. Gary Lockett stopping the fight. Should he have got the doctor? Was that a bit of a mistake from him? And also, was the stoppage influenced by anything to do with Nick Blackwell?
I don't know. I wouldn't comment on that because I don't know. But Gary Lockett is a guy who cares for his fighters. I've known Gary since he was a kid, so I know that much for sure. I think he panicked a bit, to be honest. Which, listen, when his things are live, it happened. He panicked a little bit. I think if he would have took stock, then he probably would have got the doctor to have a look and got the referee involved. But listen, the referee might have said it was a punch. and then you either pull him out or you don't. If it's a punch, then you pull him, then you pull him out, or the doctor pulls him out. Then if it's a punch, then you lose the fight. So, but he should have got the doctor. Yeah, in hindsight, with all geniuses in hindsight, he should have got the doctor. I think he panicked a little bit, but he was worried about the fighter's eye. It was a deep cut on the eyelid as well, not on the eye, not on the eyebrow, on the eyelid, and it was deep. You'll see his eyeball if it gets any deeper. So he's thinking about the kid's career, the rest of his career. He's not thinking about the one fight, Gary, which is sensible. But I think he probably could have got, maybe with a bit of push, there was a chance that he could have got the doctor. It could have gone to points, which would have obviously given Liam Williams the win. But listen, only Gary Lockett, it would be a great guest. Only he could answer all these questions for you. We don't know how he felt. He might have known what was going on. We're going, listen, his eye was too bad. I didn't give a shit about anything but the kid's safety. And that might have been, obviously, because of what happened to Nick Blackwell. It's funny, this game, see, Joe, because you think about your own job and your people, but also with social media and everything else, you're aware of the criticism of other people. And that's always in your mind, in all parts of the job. The trainers, the managers, the referees, the judges, the commentators, the promoters. We all know what you say about us, what people say about us, good and bad. So you can't help but to have that in the back of your mind when you're doing your job, which you shouldn't be, but you have. You have that in your mind. So, and maybe these things have influenced Gary Lockett. I don't know, but listen, you got to make a split. You got to make a judgment in seconds, and that's what he did, and that was his choice. And listen, Liam Williams will live to fight another day, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and like I say, last words on this. Obviously, Smith was pretty. He was pretty. He started the interview after the fight a little bit brash, a little bit. I was going to stop him, so and so. But he did go on to say, "Look, I made a mistake with the weight. I will give him a rematch. We hope he's a man of his word, because we do need to see it, especially for Williams' sake, because it was a bad ending for him." Right, that's it for the Manchester Bill. Moving over now to York Hall. One fight to mention on this one: Ben Jones, former WBO European champion. He was fighting for the vacant Commonwealth featherweight title against Jason Cunningham, and I said on last week's show this was going to be a good fight. I think Jason Cunningham is a little bit underrated. Obviously, he's got 3 losses on his record, 21-3 going into this, and he lost both of his fights. Can't remember who to now, but he lost both of those fights very, very, very close. They were very, very close. I think one might have been a split, another one was just by about a round or so, and then he got outclassed by Cal Yafai, which is no disgrace. Ben Jones was upset here. It was a split decision win in favour of Jason Cunningham, so his record now 22-3. Ben Jones back to the drawing board, 22-6 with 1 draw. Commiserations for Ben Jones. He's been on the show once before. Nice guy. We wish him all the best moving forward, but I didn't see that fight, so I can't really say too much. Another fight that happened over in the venue in Dudley, West Midlands. Andrew Robinson. He's been on BoxNation a couple of times, actually Barry. Obviously, he's bit of a warrior. He obviously had a good fight with Frank Buglioni, had a good fight with the kid it's just slipped my mind. He was on I think it was a Brentwood show. Lee Markham, that's it. Banjo Markham, yeah, it was a good fight. Yeah. And he took on super journeyman, and I believe some sort of relation to you, Barry, Adam Jones. Obviously, Adam Jones. I don't know if you've seen him fight. Have you seen this guy fight?
Why would he be a relation to me?
Because he's got the same surname.
Do you know what? I'm more of a relation to the Yaffais that I am to the Adam Jones.
No, but have you seen this kid Adam Jones fight?
I probably have, but on top of my head I can't right now. On the spot I can't really think.
He's a journeyman. He's 6-20 with 4 draws going into the fight, but he's never been stopped. He is tough as hell. Honestly, he just doesn't stop coming forward. And I said last week that this could be a bit of a banana skin really for Andrew Robinson, and it ended up being a draw on points after 6 rounds. So off the top of my head, I'd imagine that the 6 rounds probably didn't do Andrew Robinson a favour. But this guy Adam Jones, he seems to fight every other week, and like I say, he walks through people's punches. He's fought a few prospects, but he can be a right nightmare. And also on this bill, another right nightmare of a journeyman, William Warburton. Obviously, we've seen him up.
Yeah.
He's horrible. I don't even know why any prospect wants to fight him. Obviously, I remember he was at the fight. He beat that. What happened to that kid actually? The guy who he was signed with Frank Warren. Oh gosh. Georgie Keane. What happened to him, Barry?
So, you know what? I haven't got a clue. Yeah, it's a shame that he was a really good ticket seller.
Yeah.
And not a bad fight. He changed a few trainers. He went to two different trainers.
He was with Adam Booth for a little while, wasn't he, I think?
Adam Booth for a little while, yeah. He sort of went back and forth, but yeah, I don't know what happened to him in the end. Yeah, it was a funny thing. That's what happens in boxing. Kids they just die off all of a sudden. They just disappear and you don't see them for years. It's a strange thing. But William Warburton is a nightmare for anyone.
Yeah,
he really is.
But
he's one of those kids. You like you said, Lewis Reese was another kid, undefeated, a Welsh kid, really good kid. BoxNation were really pushing this Lewis Reese. Didn't train Lewis Reese really like he should, but Warburton beat him, and then Reese, that was it with Reese. He walked away from the game.
Yeah.
But if I can't beat William Warburton, I'm not good enough to fight anyone, and that was it. He packed it in.
Yeah, William Warburton, he's definitely a banana skin. But his opponent, Tyler Denny, 4-0 with 2 draws, got a win over him, so he's now 5-0 with 2 draws. That was a 6-round points win at middleweight, that one. That's it for West Midlands. Moving over now to... I'm going to start with a card, actually, that took place on Sunday. Then we're going to move on to the Lomachenko bill. This one was at the Novo in LA, Los Angeles, California. 2 fights to mention on this bill, I think. Alejandro Luna moved to 22-0 with a win over Andrei Klimov. Andrei Klimov now 19-4. Klimov was cut on the left eye from an accidental headbutt in round 4, but nonetheless it went the full 10 rounds. A unanimous decision win there for Luna. Josecito Lopez picked up win number 35. Obviously, he's also carrying the 7 losses. He picked up a win over Saul Corral, who had a record of 23-8, now 23-9. Corral was down in round 10. It was only scheduled for 10. Corral was also cut on the right eye in round 3. Lopez was cut on the lower lip from an accidental headbutt as well during that fight. So, decent win there for Josecito Lopez. That one was on the Sunday just gone. And now the final bill to mention. A few fights to mention on this card. Over in the MGM National Harbour in Maryland, USA. Starting down the undercard, Jesse Hart. He picked up his 22nd career win. TKO in round 5 over Alan Camper. Alan Camper now 16-3. And Jesse Hart picked up the vacant WBA NABA Super-Middleweight title. He also defended successfully his USBA Super-Middleweight title, so a good win there for Jesse Hart. Mike Yes Indeed Reed, friend of the show, he moved to 22-0 with a unanimous decision win over 10 rounds at welterweight, that one, over Reyes Sanchez, who's now got a record of 26-10 with 2 draws. Alexander Gavodsdik moved to 13-0 with a TKO in round 3, picking up the vacant WBO NABO light heavyweight title and also defending the NABF light heavyweight title. His opponent, Unieski Gonzalez, was down in round 3. I think that's how you say his name. His record now 18-3. Gonzalez he's a pretty tough guy, Barry, but Gavodsdik obviously too much for him.
Yeah, well, the thing with Gavodsdik is he's correct. He's neat with his punches. He punches inside his body frame, so he turns from the waist. Doesn't punch wide, so Gonzalez swings punches in and he's awkward. But if you're neat and you can punch like a Vodskis, then he's never going to beat you. And it was a clinical performance. Gonzalez, we've seen him in Pascal and BoxStation. He was unlucky against Jean Pascal, Gonzalez. So he's a tough guy to beat. So it's a good win there for the Ukrainian bronze medalist in the 2012 Olympics in London. And he's pretty much there or thereabouts knocking on a world title fight.
Yeah, for sure. So a good win for him. He moves to 13-0. Also on the bill, Alexander Usyk, 11-0, putting his WBO World Cruiserweight title on the line against a guest from last week's show, Michael Hunter. Hunter was given a count in round 12 as well in this one. I can't actually believe that he wasn't stopped. I don't know. Did you manage to watch this fight, Barry? You see it?
Yeah. I drove down from Manchester to London. I worked the show.
Oh yeah, of course you did. Yeah. I was wondering if you were going to be there because I didn't think. How did you do that? As soon as the last bell went, you must have got in the car.
Do you know why? I got a family to feed. I would sweep the floors and make the tea if they paid me the same money. Don't worry about that. We're all going to make a living. Listen, Joe, so we're all going to make a living, mate. So yes, I went down. I want anything to do with this bill. I had to get and watch this bill live, so I didn't want to be watching it the next day. Hunter was a revelation.
Hang on, let's wind back one sec, Barry. How on earth did you get down to the studio that quickly? Didn't the bill finish about 11-12 something?
I left
Manchester?
I left a little bit before it finished. So I left. I watched the Flanagan fight. I gotta be honest. I watched the Flanagan fight on tape. later on the next day on at home, which is a little bit embarrassing because I feel bad to see that for Terry because he's a fantastic fella. But I had to work, so I had to judge which fight I had to lose out, and it was the Flanagan fight that I missed. But it was.
It was on a little bit later than expected anyway, I think, the Flanagan fight. But go on.
Yeah, it was pushed on a bit, didn't it? But Hunter was a revelation. I think it was brilliant. He lost. And he clearly lost. There was only one winner. But in the first half of the fight, we thought, he's going to, Usyk was really just offering him a target to hit. I think he just thought he was going to walk this Hunter down. The Hunter reminded me of Dennis Andre. Not exactly the same style, but everything was wrong what he did, but it worked. His balance was terrible, but he was always on balance. It doesn't make any sense. His feet were wrong, but he'd never fall over. He'd throw his punches, he'd be off balance, he'd come back with another shot, and everything that Hunter did just didn't seem fluent. But it was so effective for him, and I think Usyk looked strong and just tried to walk him down. Nothing bothered him, but he wasn't as slick as I thought he would be. Alexander Usyk, the champion. I think he didn't struggle. He always knew he was going to win the fight. And I think he had another gear to go, to be honest. But you're right about the referee. That fight should have been stopped. The referee wanted the American to see the final bell, and we all did, but not to risk his health for that. He took an absolute hammering in the last round, and the referee should have stopped the fight. And Usyk should have got the TKO for sure.
Yeah, I agreed. I was a little bit worried. I got to be honest. I actually had a bet on this fight to go the distance, so I actually wanted it to go to the distance. But I was on my feet. I was worried. I thought it was going to get stopped. Again, he deserved to see the final bell. His head was very clear though. Even though when he was given the count, he actually kind of turned to his corner. He looked a bit annoyed with himself, and you could clearly see him mouth the words. He just said "fuck." He was annoyed. So but I had it closer than the judges did. I actually gave Hunter the first 4 rounds. I know people might really disagree, but I thought he was brilliant in the first few rounds.
I think given 3 of the first 4. For me, though, he was brilliant, but it was always a sense that Usyk was letting him win. Do you know what I mean? That's what it felt like to me. Like Usyk felt like he could do more. That's what it looked like to me all the time. But listen, it doesn't matter whether he could do more or he wasn't doing enough. I think Hunter, after 4 rounds, I think I Hunter 3-1 up, I think if I can remember rightly, on top of my head.
Yeah.
And so, it was a great start for him, but then Usyk pressure and obviously his better technique and, and his pedigree just started to show through where Hunter was a little bit wild and unorthodox. That works, especially in the early rounds. That always works until someone gets the grips of you, and I think that's what Usyk's got a great engine. Everything's fluent. He doesn't load up with any punches. He just lets everything flow, which means he can throw a lot of punches, and he can throw a lot of punches in the later rounds, in those championship rounds, where everyone's getting tired. He's still got everything's fluent with him. He doesn't tense up with nothing he does. He doesn't waste any unwanted energy, and that's why he looks like he's as fit in the 12th as he is in the first.
Yeah, he's got a great engine. But no, I think Hunter did himself proud. I think he announces himself on that kind of level now. I think he could give many of the other top contenders nightmares actually. No, it was good.
Champions nightmares, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was impressed with him, and also, as I say, he was on last week's show, so there was that bit of love there. But no, it was definitely a brilliant performance, and anybody that didn't listen to last week's show should give that little interview a listen, because it was interesting. He wasn't just talking about the fight; he was talking about many other things. Obviously, many people know that his father went through a bit of a crazy demise when he retired from boxing, so it's definitely worth a listen, that one. So yeah, Alexander Usyk picks up another win. He's now 12-0. Michael Hunter 12-1. Moving over now to the main event. Vasyl Lomachenko 7-1 took on Jason Sosa 20-1 with 4 draws. Jason Sosa obviously vacated his WBA World Super-Featherweight title before the fight. I'm not quite sure why. But yeah, it wasn't on the line. Lomachenko's WBO was on the line. It was a one-sided fight for most of it, to be honest, Barry. But for me, I think that Jason Sosa, I've never quite seen him be that elusive. I know he shipped a lot of punches as well, and that's why, in the end, he ended up getting pulled out by his father. But for me, I've never seen Lomachenko miss so much. in some parts he looked a little bit desperate, Lomachenko, as well. But I think that Jason Sosa was pretty good on the defence. I think he was. I've never seen him really move laterally that good in any of his fights. I think he didn't. It wasn't like an embarrassing one-sided beatdown for me.
No, well, I think Sosa realised straight away that defence is going to be the key against Lomachenko. I don't know. I think Lomachenko's a puzzle to hit. He's really elusive. He's one of the most elusive fighters around. If not the most elusive fighter around today. And so you're going to have to make him work. But I don't think that there was any urgency or worry or anything with Lomachenko. He still looked brilliant to me, Lomachenko. I think Sosa's underrated fight. I think he's really good. I saw him when he won the title against Fortuna in China, and again he showed a few defensive skills there, but he'd sit really low and roll under punches against a big puncher, and then he turned out to be the big puncher in that fight. But Lomachenko's just superb. He really is. I'm going for hours, so I'll just be really short and sweet. It's like he puts his opponents on pause. He goes to work. That's what it's like. He just slows his opponent down. Even if he looks slow motion, I haven't seen a fighter like him. I'm not saying he's the best fighter ever lived, but I haven't seen a fighter quite like him the way he fights. It's just crazy. And also, it only is, his ninth fight? Let's take stock at his ninth fight. I don't know why I boxed him in that fight. I think I boxed Peter Buckley or something like that in my ninth fight. He's boxing world level fighters. He's beaten world champions who've gone on to win world titles after he's beat them. They've been good fighters, former world champions, current. He's beat the best fighter in his weight with him, or one of the best, Nicholas Walters, and made him quit. Now they're beating him up, or they're frustrating him. The guy's superb, and he's good in any era of boxing.
Yeah,
I'm not going to start saying he beats all-time greats and all that, because he might be an all-time great himself, but he's competitive and maybe the best in any era, but certainly competitive in any era, from featherweight to super featherweight, them two weights, he's the best. The only thing that will beat him is going too far up in the weights. That's the only thing that's going to beat him. He's going to talk to the guy who's too big. That's all that's going to beat him.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think he's a phenomenon, as I say. He's definitely a one-off. His footwork is incredible. He's got sort of his own style. It's very, very effective. But Jason Sosa, he's as tough as nails. I don't think he was going to be stopped. I think his father pulling him out was probably the right thing, because it was only going one way. But I don't think he would have actually been able to get him out of there, because he's a tough kid, Jason Sosa. People forget. But a good win there for Vasyl Lomachenko. And another defence of his WBO World Super-Featherweight title. His record now 8-1. Jason Sosa 20-2 with 4 draws. The thing what scares me about Lomachenko, and the last real piece of talk on this fight from me, when he throws shots, when he's got his men on the ropes, I didn't realise really. I've never I've watched these fights, but I really studied this one. And have you seen the thing he does, Barry, where he kind of uses one glove to push your guard down, and then he throws a shot over the top? That's horrible. That's bad.
I've seen it on social media somewhere, Facebook or something like that, where someone throws it down. How he does it, it's like he literally parries you with one hand. It's technically not allowed, to be honest, but he parries you with one hand. He does it so fast and fluently, he gets away with it. He parries you with one and hits you with the other one, moves your hands out of the way. Listen, the things he does, like I said, it's like he slows everything down. And someone called him the Matrix the other day. I put something on Twitter the other day saying, I think I got the tools to beat Lomachenko, and then it was a picture of about 25 machine guns. And someone said, it probably still wouldn't be enough. And I wouldn't make him wrong either. He's that good. He's that good. Listen, he's the sort of fighter you don't need to talk about. You just say, oh, Lomachenko. And Lomachenko means so much, and what it means is excellence.
Yeah, definitely a great win for him, and it's always a pleasure to see him fight. He truly is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in world boxing. But that's really it for part one. We've done all the talking about last week's fights. It's now time for our first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the current British middleweight champion, Mr. Tommy Langford. Tommy, welcome to the show.
Hi, mate. You all right?
Yes, my man. It's been a long time. Obviously, we last spoke to you just over a year ago. It's been a long time. We spoke to you the week after the Lewis Taylor fight. You've obviously fought twice since then, and you've kept your unbeaten record intact, 18-0 now. I remember back then when we last spoke, we were talking about the Billy Joe fight and the potential of that happening, which I'm surprised really by now it hasn't happened. In all honesty, as a voluntary, but obviously Billy's he's had a few injuries and what have you since. How have things been in that meantime, but between those two fights since we haven't spoke, Tommy?
Obviously, there've been, it's been quite, even though it's only been 2 fights, there's been a lot that's gone on with me. Obviously, I was made mandatory to Eubank. I had to deal with all the rigmarole of the Eubanks, and then they ended up pulling out, and dates got moved, and all that sort of thing went on and everything. So, it's been an up and down sort of 12 months really, despite having obviously 2 fights and two good wins and winning the British title as well. But and in terms of the Billy Joe and the WBO situation before, I'm surprised it never got offered up. It's not on my side because I've said I wanted the fight. I spoke to Frank and said I wanted it and everything, and I wanted Billy Joe, and I thought it would be a straightforward fight to make because we were both with him, and obviously he needed a voluntary last year, but it never happened. So obviously it's on Billy Joe's side why that didn't happen. So, but I found myself here with Khurtsidze to deal with, and it's a huge opportunity for me.
Yeah, absolutely, it really is. I just want to rewind just a sec there. Talking about Chris Eubank Jr, obviously he vacated the British title when the board offered the fight, or ordered the fight I should say. The reason behind that was an apparent injury rather than a duck, so to speak. Your promoter Frank Warren stated that he had some doubts over the legitimacy of the injury and instead brought up a sparring session in which you apparently got the better of Eubank Jr. I know you're a humble guy, you're not one to gloat, but could you shed any light on that whatsoever?
Well, I went down and sparred him, how long ago was it before that? It was probably 12 to 18 months, 12 months at least, before that even came into in that fight even got talked about, really. And then, I did do a very good job in sparring, and I've always said it about Eubank. If you stand in front of him and mix it with him, he's very good, he's a good fighter, dangerous. But if you can box and move, he can't deal with you, and really that's all I did in the spar. I just outboxed him, and I didn't know this at the time, but it's come to light since. But apparently, Ronnie Davis phoned the office after I'd been down sparring him and said, no matter what, we don't want anything to do with that Tommy Langford, because that was when Eubank was still with Frank Warren. So when the fight got made between me and him, I had doubts initially that they were even going to take the fight anyway. I thought they'd say they're moving on and all this sort of thing because, when you're looking at it on paper, I'm a massive risk to him and to their earning potential and all that sort of thing. So I half expected it. I don't believe that I'm anybody who wants to fight me. I'm hard work for anybody. Do you know what I mean? Anybody in the world. So I didn't believe they'd want to take the risk, but then they signed and they agreed. Frank won the purse bids and they agreed to that. They signed to that, and then said they had tennis elbow. But the seriousness of the injury is a bit of a joke, really. I mean, if you're genuinely injured and you've genuinely got desires of defending and owning the British belt outright, then the injury would be confirmed by a doctor and the fight would be postponed to a later date. They never did that. As soon as it started talking about investigatory things with doctors and all, they vacated the belt. So that makes you think that he wasn't really injured. Do you know what I mean? It was an excuse to swerve the fight, and whether they'd used that time in the background to negotiate other things with ITV or to talk about other opponents behind the back of me and on all that sort of thing is another thing. But you never really know what they're doing anyway, them Eubank. So it's just, unfortunately I got caught up in the whole thing, and it was a real pain and it was a real annoyance. But
it's in the rearview mirror now, and got big things to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is true. Now, you became British champion in your last fight, obviously. This upcoming fight, which we'll talk about in just a moment, it's obviously a fight past British level. Do you have desire to try and win the British outright? Obviously, that'll mean another 3 fights down at British level, so to speak, from the level of this next fight, or does it depend solely on the outcome of this upcoming fight?
I've always said that owning the Lonsdale belt outright is a fantastic achievement, and it's one that, yes, every fighter would love to do, and I would love to do it, but what I will say is you can get caught up defending the British title. It can, in terms of progressing in your career and moving on to world level, it can hold you back, and it can potentially ruin your chances of, you might be at your physical peak, or you might be at your best, and you don't take the world shots, but because you want to defend the British. So I've always been of the opinion that if bigger opportunities come along, I will take them and I will move on, and which is what I'm doing really. And obviously the outcome of this fight does have a say on the British title, because all being well, and I do what I do, and I do what I believe I can do, and I win the fight, then you class the British boxing board class you as above British level, and so they take the belt off you anyway, and it's made vacant. If I don't win and I lose, obviously I'm still British champion, but depending on the nature, I don't want to really think about that, because I'm not thinking about losing, but I will still be British champion, and so I've got the option and of whether I want to defend it or whether I want to move on. And I always have said, you get to world level, I want to stay at world level, I want to keep fighting at that level, because that's where obviously the money is made, but also you make a name for yourself, and I don't really want to be fighting the heights of my career, be domestic level fights. I want world level fights. So I suppose you can say that I'm not really looking to keep the belt like forever, or I'm just looking for opportunities, and I'll just take opportunities as and when they come.
Yeah, well said there. And you're taking on Avtandil Khurtsidze, I hope I'm saying that right, on the 22nd of April at the Leicester Arena. Just to clear this situation up to the listeners, Khurtsidze is the WBO #1 ranked middleweight. Number 2 is the 2012 Olympic gold medalist Ryota Murata. Tommy Langford is obviously number 3. The champion obviously being Billy Joe Saunders. The number 2 ranked guy, which was Murata, he's decided to go down the WBA route and fight Hassan and Dam for the vacant WBA regular belt, which Danny Jacobs had to give up when facing Golovkin for the WBA Super belt. So in theory, once Murata steps in that ring with Hassan and Dam, he loses his ranking with the WBO, which means this fight really is your fight is really number 1 against number 2, and the winner will become the mandatory for Billy Joe. So as I say there, Tommy, you fight in just a few days' time now. What do you know about your opponent?
I've watched footage of him. From what I've found of him, there's not a lot on him, but he's very, he's got a reputation of being very strong. He isn't big, he isn't tall, he's short for a middleweight, but he's got a lot of physical strength. He's very relentless in his pressure, and I'd say that's like the danger side of him is his relentlessness. If he gets in and you don't, if he gets in on you, he doesn't leave you alone. That being said, I don't believe he's a great boxer. He's not a better boxer than me, technically. So it's a question of really how strong is he, and I've got to stick to my plan. I've got to keep him off, and I've got to outbox him and outmaneuver him, and win the fight that way. I mean, it's very hard to judge how good he really is, because he's highly avoided by the top operators. He was Billy Joe's mandatory. Billy Joe, I mean, we don't really know where his chips are, what he's doing, but he obviously didn't want to do the mandatory against Avtandil. He's gone looking for a unification with Golovkin or whatever. Whether that comes into play or not is a different situation. But Khurtsidze is, he's very avoided, and the ones he's fought, he has dealt with very well. But it's hard to say how really good he is, because the ones he fought, they've not all been of great level, and the only one who's been at world level before, albeit lost, who he's boxed, is Hassan Ndam, and Hassan Ndam outpointed him. So, you know, it's a case of, you know, I've got to prove how good I am. I know how good what I believe I can do, but I've got to prove how good I am in that ring on the night, and, you know, do a job on him, and then I secure myself on that level.
Yeah, you sure do. It is a good fight. I'm hoping that it gets the media attention from everybody else that it deserves, because it's a real risky fight for the pair of you, to be honest. As you said there, he's not very tall. That is a striking thing. You're 6 foot. He's only 5'4", or he's only listed at 5'4". So that is a big difference in terms of height. Khurtsidze, in all honesty, as you said, he's mixed it at the higher level. Only for a couple of fights, as you say, took on the likes of Ndam and what have you. He's had exactly twice as many fights as you also. How much do you see this fight as a test? You know, it's obviously a risk. How much do you see it as a test as well?
It's 100% a challenge. It's a big step up from what I've fought before. It is a test. You know, I mean, but ultimately you can't set your sights on the top of the tree and the champions, and then when you get a big fight, you know, not won it. So, or when you get one of the names at the top of the pedestal, like not take it. So, I'm just doing what I've always done and taking the fights that's been offered and testing what make you or break you, aren't they? You know, if you come through them and you pass it with flying colours, then you're the champions. You know what I mean? If you don't, then you lose. You know, what are you going to do? You rebuild and you go again.
And Tommy, I want to ask you, if you've got any names, you can throw them out. Have you been sparring anybody in this camp that we might know at all?
I've done a good few rounds with Martin Murray. I know he's not the physical build of Khurtsidze, but he's very known as being a very strong middleweight himself, and obviously for super-middleweight as well. But you know, so I've done some good rounds with Murray, and the tricky thing has been finding people the right sort of size. But the best rounds I've had in sparring, the best experience of sparring I've had in this camp has been with Martin Murray. That's been great for me.
Yeah, good to hear. The end game, obviously, as we alluded to a little bit earlier, is the shot at Billy Joe. What is your relationship like with Billy Joe, if you've got one, Tommy?
I've always gone with Billy Joe. I've known him for quite a long time, really, throughout the amateurs. So I've never had a bad word to say about him, really. I think he's a very, you know, on his day, he's a great boxer. He's slick, he's very hard to pin down, very hard to beat. But also, I'm in the game to be the champion, and you know, I want the fight. And I've not been shy about saying I want to fight him. It's just one of those things, isn't it? It's business, isn't it? You know. But my relationship with him is pretty good, really. I mean, we're not best pals or anything like that, but I've always got on with him, you know, when I've seen him. So yeah, no hard feelings to him at all.
And if he does go for the unification in the meantime, if Saunders were to take on Golovkin, who do you see winning that fight if that happens?
Well, I see Golovkin winning. I think the very best Billy Joe, which we haven't seen for quite a long time, because, you know, even, you know, when his last fight wasn't a good performance, and he was the first one to say that, and he had 12 months before, so we've not seen the best Billy Joe for a long time, but like, the fittest and best Billy Joe can cause Golovkin a lot of problems with his foot movement, but it's just a case of whether he can keep that up for the 12 rounds and not get caught up with. I think he poses a lot of problems to Golovkin, but that being said, I don't think it's enough, really, and I think Golovkin would find a way, but you never really know what the age is saying with Golovkin now. You know, that last performance against Jacobs, I think they neglected his real boxing ability, the Golovkin team, and looked to try and he was trying just to land big punches, you know, big shots, and obviously he hurt Jacobs, but what he neglected was his boxing ability to get him into the positions to land the hurtful punches. I don't know if he'll make that mistake again, really.
Yeah, but I agree with everything you said there, to be completely honest. It does depend on which Saunders turns up in that fight. Last two questions now for you, Tommy. A big fight coming up in the end of this month. Obviously, we've all been looking forward to it. It's a real test in the heavyweight division for the Brit, Anthony Joshua against Vladimir Klitschko. Have you got any kind of opinion on that fight?
Yeah, I think put it this way. If Joshua can't beat a 40-odd-year-old Klitschko at this stage in his career, once he's already been beat by Tyson Fury, is Joshua the real deal? What we're all saying, that sounds harsh. I believe he is good, very good, Joshua, and I think he's going to be too young, too fresh, too fast for Klitschko. I think Klitschko doesn't do anything different to what he's done before, because he'll revert back to the same thing that he's done, and I just don't think that's fast enough, sharp enough, or enough to beat Joshua. And obviously, he's already been shown that he can be beat by Tyson Fury. So, I think, and everyone is kind of forgetting that he's already been beat by Fury. But I don't foresee Joshua having too much trouble. I think if we do see a different Klitschko and he comes flying out of traps and tries to do something different, and I think Joshua will knock him out. But I think we see the same old Klitschko, and everything behind the jab, doesn't throw the right hand, doesn't gamble, and Joshua will win on points.
Okay, fair enough. I haven't really seen many people say he's got a chance on points, but no, it will be definitely a good fight, definitely one I've been looking forward to for a long time. And finally, Tommy, just before I let you go, as I say before, I know that you're very modest, you're very grounded. If you don't have one, you don't have to say it, but I want to ask you for your prediction for your fight, if you've got one. How do you see your fight ending?
My predictions are winning, but I'm preparing for a tough, hard 12 rounds. I'll be honest. He's very tough. He's got he's got two losses, and one of them was a freak stoppage. I haven't found out how he was stopped, but that was very early in his career. He is known for being extremely tough. So, and I'm not known for being a big puncher. So I'll be honest. We're looking at a points decision, really.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough, of course.
Grinding out a points decision, tough fight, but it's going to be a good one, exciting one. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, me too. Okay, listen, Tommy, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for giving us a piece of your time. Best of luck for the 22nd, and no doubt we'll catch up soon.
No problem. Thank you very much. Thanks for the call.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. We're going to start with the preview part. Just before we get onto the preview part, I actually do want to just spend 1 minute or so just on the BoxNation production of last week's card, Barry. And I was going to do this before I knew that you were coming on. So I've just noted a few things down that I noticed during the whole production. I thought the production was very, very good. I think that obviously BT are now involved. I think the standards were up to very much so. I know that Ronald McIntosh was brought in as well. I know that he was doing some commentary with you. The thing what disappointed me a tiny bit was I got an email on the day. It was either on the day or the day before. Basically, I don't know if it was a little bit automated, but it was basically saying the fight's going ahead, here's the weights, here's the rounds of every contest, so and so. Tickets are still available. And it looked to me that every ticket section was still available, which is a bit of a shame because, it was a good card. It had loads and loads of fights on it. But I know that that's a thing that will pick up over time. The whole weekend itself, because BoxNation actually obviously had the two big bills of the weekend. Both of the main events, Liam versus Liam and the Jason Sosa and Lomachenko fight, one fighter in both of those fights didn't make the weight initially. I know Jason Sosa was able to lose the pounds and get back on the scale in time, so that was all fine. But it looked like that could play a part in the fights not working out good. But I think it didn't really do any damage to it. I think it was brilliant. I was also a bit intrigued as well by the two parts. Of the undercard on BoxNation. Obviously there was like an undercard, and then there was like a build-up program in the middle of the card, and then the main event came on. That was something that I've never quite seen before, something which I think worked pretty well as well. The only thing for me is I'm not sure if there was a fight shown in that time that we missed. Did we miss anything in that time?
There would have been a fight. I can't remember now because I'm off signing off for work sort of thing before I go back in. But yeah, there would have been. But I think it's the reason why the production is BT because they got more money, more cameras, and that's why. Remember, BoxNation is a small channel and it costs a fortune to run shows. So with BT, they got more money and more, obviously more resources. So they were doing the show, but we were showing it as well. Yeah. The half-hour gap was when he went live. On BT, I know BoxNation is part of BT as well. So if you get BT, you get BoxNation for free. But if you don't have BT, you just have BoxNation. You only see what we show and not what they show, which they show exactly the same as us, but they didn't show the undercard. So I did the undercard for 2 hours with Ronald McIntosh and Steve Bunce was with Nashville, and then the half-hour gap where the team turned over. Then Richie Woodall took my place, and John Wallen took the place of Ronald McIntosh, and then Steve. What's his name? The other guy took the place of Steve Bunce, and Steve became a pundit. So there was a change. They needed a half hour to change everything around there, I think, and that's why that was put into place. And that was it. Then that was their flagship just solely for BT on BT Sports, and that was their flagship show. Then obviously, so that was the way that works.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Sorry, go on.
No, I said the ticket sales. It was always a bad idea to put it straight after the big show in Manchester, and I just think of the Grand National as well. I think all that was just the planning. I think BT wanted the show on that day, and obviously Liam Smith was never going to go to Cardiff, which the show should have been because Williams sells more tickets than Smith, to be honest. So I think it would have been better in Cardiff. It would have been packed out in Cardiff. Then obviously Terry Flanagan's a Manchester boy, but then there's a lot of some fighters on that bill who don't sell as many tickets, and that's how, and it was what it was. But it's got to be a building process. You forget it's been BoxNation for a while, so a lot of these fighters have been getting work and being shown, but lesser profile. Now they're going to get a bigger profile on BT Sport, with BoxNation bringing through the talent as well. If we keep showing the undercard, which would be great, and then they'll have bigger profiles, which means they'll be able to fill up arenas, and then it'll be a competitive field across Sky and BoxNation or whatever, or Channel 5, whoever's involved. With everyone, hopefully we can be competing on an even keel, and more importantly, unless we get rinsed with pay-per-views that everywhere left, right and centre, which we very well might be, who knows. I have no insight into what goes on above my station, above my level, but it'll be entertaining. We get entertaining fights, and that's what we want. Packed arenas, entertaining fights. Every time we turn on a TV show, we want it to be that way, don't we? Whoever's showing. Whoever's showing the boxing, whatever channel showing.
Of course. And also I will also make a note on the, I'm always watching BoxNation in HD. It seemed like the HD was better HD than I've ever seen it on BoxNation. I'm not sure what that was about. I don't know if there's new cameras brought in or what, but that was seemed to me. Yeah, it seemed to me that HD was a lot better than it has been.
I don't have BoxNation HD. I have BoxNation on Virgin Media, so that it doesn't have an HD channel. So I watched the show on BoxNation. I didn't watch it, but I watched it on BT because I get BT with my BoxNation with my Virgin package. So yeah, I only seen it on HD, which looked great. But yeah, it's a shame you didn't get to see me on HD. Because I'm much better looking. In high definition. And anyway, come on, let's get on with it. Just let's not talk about me. It was a good start. It was a good on paper. It was a good show, and that's all you can do. All you do is make a show that on paper is good, and sometimes you don't live up to the hype. Things can happen. People don't make weight. People don't perform. Styles clash. But if on paper it's a good fight, then the rest of it's just luck. And that's all you can do as a promoter, I would imagine, and a TV station is try and make fights that look good, and hopefully they deliver.
Yeah, of course. And that was my little segment there on the production of the BoxNation card. So that's over now. Going over now to the preview part of the show. Starting over in the MGM National Harbour. So this is also the bill that was, that staged the Lomachenko card last week. This week, for the interim WBA World Light Heavyweight title, Dimitri Bivol, 9-0. He's in there against Samuel Clarkson, 19-3. That should be a decent fight there. A 12-rounder, obviously, at light heavyweight there. Dimitri Bivol, definitely one to watch out for. Two guys also on that undercard. Hasim Rahman Jr. making his debut. If you haven't put two and two together, that's the son of Hasim Rahman. He's in a contest. It's only a 4-rounder. He's actually a heavyweight, so that's good news. Also, Sharif Sharif Rahman, that's another son of Hasim Rahman. He's 1-0 at the moment. He's in a 4-rounder as well. His opponent yet to be announced. So both of Hasim Rahman's sons on that bill. That's good to see. Moving over now from Maryland, USA to a card happening in Spain, and this guy gets an honourable mention. He got beaten by Lee Selby in his last fight. Andoni Gargo, 16-3 with 2 draws. He's in an 8-rounder at featherweight against Mark Sozoros, who has a record of 4-0. So we wish Andoni Gargo all the best. And just a quick note there, actually, on Lee Selby. Lee Selby's decided, if listeners haven't seen it, he's decided to put his ring jacket that he wore to the ring in his last fight against Andoni Gargo, if I'm not mistaken. He's put it up for auction through his social media pages. I know that last time he was on the show, he was auctioning his shorts. This time it's his jacket. Some sort of close friends or close family, something to do with his close friends or whatever, are going for a bit of a rough patch in their life. So I think I'm not sure what it is. I don't think he's going to talk about it, but whatever it is, he's going to a good cause. So if you do get a chance, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, just tweet him a bid or write on his Facebook with a bid, and he'll put it in the bids. But nice touch there from Lee Selby, a real true classy guy, and we love having him on the show. He's always one of the best to speak to. Moving over now to the big card this weekend, I'd say, over in Glasgow, Scotland, at the SSE Hydro. We're going to start with the undercard. Couple fights to mention on this one. Lawrence Okoli, his opponent yet to be announced as far as I know. It's a 4-rounder at cruiserweight. Obviously, Okoli was on a couple weeks back. His whole fight lasted about 20 seconds, so we're interested. Hopefully this one goes a little bit longer. Josh Kelly makes his debut as well. His pro debut. He takes on Jay Byrne, who has a record of 4-1. That's a 4-rounder at welterweight. Joe Ham's on the bill. His record at the moment 10-0. He takes on Scott McCormack. This one's for the vacant Celtic Super Bantamweight title. Charlie Flynn's on the bill as well. Charlie Edwards is on the bill. He's fighting for the British Super Flyweight title against Ian Butcher. Ian Butcher 16-2. Charlie Edwards 9-1. We wish Charlie Edwards all the best. He's a friend of mine, obviously. I spoke to him earlier this week and I said to him about coming on the show, and he's very, very busy with camp, I suppose. So hopefully we get him on next week. He couldn't come on this week, so nonetheless, we wish him all the best. Scotty Cardle's on the bill as well, 21-0 with 1 draw. He takes on Robbie Barrett, 14-2 with 1 draw. Also, this is Scotty Cardle's 3rd defence of his British lightweight title. If he wins the fight, he obviously gets to keep the title. It's a 12-rounder, of course, at lightweight. And now the main event, Ricky Burns, 41-5 with 1 draw, putting his IBF World... Oh no, sorry, he's not the IBF champion. He's putting his WBA World Super Lightweight title on the line against Julius Indongo, the IBF World Super Lightweight champion. His record 21-0, coming off of a couple of impressive wins. And also the IBO World titles on the line as well. It's a 12-rounder, of course. Barry, basically, I've gone over every fight there. Is there any fights on the undercard or the main event that you want to say any words on? Just jump into any of them.
Well, I think Josh Kelly's good, the Olympian, young kid, real multi-talented fighter, Josh Kelly. I think he's going to be a star. So I think that's one that if he gets shown on Sky TV, which I hope he does, that's one to watch in the future for sure. It really is. I think Charlie Edwards is in a hard fight against Ian Butcher. I really do. I think Charlie Edwards is going to be good enough to win, but Butcher will make it hard for him. He's underrated. And he'll really push Charlie Edwards, and he'll go in there. But you're thinking if you put it on Edwards, he'll fold because of his world title fights. But I think Edwards is made of sterner stuff than what Butcher maybe thinks. But it's not going to be all easy sailing for Charlie Edwards, that's for sure. But he is a really talented fighter, Charlie Edwards. Just a shame that he moved up in weight and away from Lee Selby. That would have been Andrew Selby. Sorry, it would have been a lovely little fight if there could have been made. And that's it, really. I think this is Scotty Cardle. You should have that Lonsdale belt for keeps anyway. But obviously, it depends if it's a draw, so that doesn't allow that. So he's got to get another fight under his belt before he moves on to, you would think, European level, I think, Scotty Cardle.
Yeah, Charlie Edwards, as I say, that is a decent fight, and it is a shame he moved out of the weight, but he's now linked up with Adam Booth, which is an interesting link up as well. So that's one I'm looking forward to seeing how they work together. And the main event, obviously, I mentioned it there, Barry. Anything to throw on that one? I know it's going to be a good fight. We don't really know too much about Indongo. I know he's kind of been a wrecking ball of late, but we don't really know. Is he that legit? The fights haven't gone long enough to really tell, but.
It's hard to tell. It's like Javante Davis, you just think is he that? I know in Dongo, they're not talking about Dongo like the next saviour of boxing that they had, Gervonta Davis. You think, is he that good, or is just one really good fight? Do you know what I mean? One really good performance. Like, Klitschko is a good fighter, punched himself, good boxer, and he just wiped them out straight away. So, is that just one of those things? It happens now and again. That, if Klitschko boxed him again, would Klitschko deal with him easy? It's hard. That's the only fight I've seen from him Dongo. I haven't really had, because it's not this fight I'm working on, so I haven't really delved into him too much. And Ricky Burns, you just think, how long is he going to go on? He looks like he'd had his day, and then he comes back with win after win and good wins, and Ricky Burns is a guy who just won't go away at the highest level. He's Britain's only second 3-weight world champion. I know it doesn't have the same respect that he used to have years ago, but he still is. The fact that he is, he's a world champion now at light welterweight, or super lightweight, sorry, as it's called nowadays. I remember back when he turned pro, we would never ever. You would have a slap in the face. You would have said, Ricky Burns is going to be a world champion. Let alone a 3-year world champion. And what he's done is just defied the odds throughout his career. The kid is all about. He got skill, obviously, but he's literally an advertisement for mental toughness and dedication to his craft. That's what he is. He's like, if you want to be a professional, you watch Ricky Burns. Watch Ricky Burns. How he lives his life, how humble he's been in the past, how he trains hard, dedicates himself, and commits himself in the fight as well. He'll go for it when he has to, and he's a boxer by trade, but he's not afraid to go for it when needed to be. I think one day the gas is going to run out on Ricky Burns, and he's not going to be able to pull the trigger anymore. I think he's got a couple more fights left in him. Amazingly, I still think he does. I think Odongo, Ricky, as long as he doesn't get caught early, I think he stays nice and safe and calm and uses that footwork, which he's sort of forgotten about in recent years. In and out, that tricky little jerk style with his feet that he had as a lightweight and certainly as a super featherweight. Then I think he gets another win, another defence, and unifies a light welterweight division, and then maybe gets that really big payday, before he retires, and that's what we want to see for him. Ultimately, we want to see him get a big payday, and then sail off into the sunset. A guy's been phenomenal, where no one would give him a chance of being anywhere but that. Then all he got to fight is Terence Crawford. That's the next. That's it. This is unification match. They'll have 2 belts each if he can beat Ndongo. Well, what a fight! Look at that. Who would have thought that? The Terence Crawford being talked about as the next star of the future, or one of many. Now all of a sudden, Bob Hart and Top Rank are really pushing him to be the next big American superstar. And Scotland's Ricky Burns, who was literally, up until recently, was still working in a sports shop.
Yeah, I think
Crazy business.
I've been a little bit critical of Ricky Burns. I think that I honestly think he's kind of there for the taking a little bit with someone who's a legitimate world level guy at 140. I don't think it's the best weight for Ricky Burns either, really. Since he had a bad year in 2013 and 14, obviously the draw with Beltran, and then he lost to Crawford and lost to Zlaticanin. He got like a points win coming back from that. Then he took on Omar Figueroa. He did really well, but the scorecards were quite wide. Omar Figueroa was on this show talking about it, saying that he had a broken hand. It was the easiest fight of his life. And since then, he's kind of put together a string of wins against, some decent guys, but not on that level. And then Michele DeRocco, which was the worst vacant world title challenger I've seen for God knows how long. And obviously he won that, and then it was a close fight with Relic. Some people thought that could have gone.
See, Relic's a good fighter though. Relic's a good fighter though. I think Relic, but I understand what you're saying. He's not there. I almost said the word elite, but I don't believe in elite, because if you're world championship, that means you are elite. That's what it should mean. So he's not at that level of the Crawford. I understand that, but Zlaticanin, look how good he turned out to be. You know what I mean? That all of a sudden. I'm the same with you, Ricky Burns. I've in my mind, I've written him off loads of times. I really have. Like, that's it now. He can't keep going. He don't move his feet like he used to. That'll be it now. He gets found out, and he keeps proving you wrong. And I just think, and something like the Dongo, who maybe might not be the best one. the best champion around, I think he got half a chance. But it is a case of when he gets caught, when time catches up with Ricky Burns, and it seems he's shown plenty of signs in the past, but he keeps coming from producing wins, and he's a kid who's not afraid to lose and come back and have another go. But as time goes on, the rebuilding process gets harder and harder, and also you've got to think his promoters, are they going to want to reinvest and go for him with him again? I think once he loses his world title, they either try and trade him in as cannon fodder for on the way down for champions on the way up, or they sort of wash their hands of him, and that's not being careless. That's how the sport works. It really is. But he's one of those kids. He's defied the odds from day one, Ricky Burns, and I hope he keeps doing it as long as he wants to, as long as he's not getting seriously hurt and there's no trouble with his health. I think he's been one of those guys who deserved everything. He's worked for everything he's got, and you could. There's some boxers you get a little bit envious of. You think you don't deserve that massive payday, that fella. As a boxer, you're happy that any boxer earns money, but you think you don't deserve that more than another fella here. He's getting double. He shouldn't be getting double what the other guy's getting. But Ricky Burns, if he was getting 10 million quid, no one would begrudge him a penny. You'd go, good for him, because he had to slog through all this shit. And no one wanted to promote him. No one wanted Frank done a great job and Eddie's done a great job, but no one wants to go to Scotland. They don't put. There's like in Wales and Scotland, the two places that people don't want to promote. I don't know why. Maybe it's a hard sell. I don't know how it works, but they don't want to go there, really. And there's great nights in Scotland, and there's been some great nights in Wales, but they don't really want to go there, and that's just the truth. People want to stay in Manchester, Liverpool, and London. They're the three cities where people want to promote from. I don't know why, but yeah, I think Ricky Burns got a really good chance Saturday night. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just hasn't got no gas left in him and he gets soundly beat up. It's one of those.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, Ricky Burns, he's never been stopped, but Ndongo's coming off 3 knockouts against decent level guys. I don't really see him stopping him, but I do think Ricky's really there for the taking. I think if he was to take on Crawford, I think that Crawford would stop him in a rematch. That's just my opinion. And I know that there's a little bit of talk already about Crolla moving up and taking on Ricky Burns. So for me, I think if he was to come through this fight, they would try to do something in-house, all matchroom.
Yeah.
And I think they're really going to try to buy their time and wait for Crawford to move up to 147, which he's been talking about for quite a while. And if he relinquishes his belts, then hey, Ricky Burns has got a few more paydays left. So all the best to Ricky Burns. Obviously, I hope he does come for it, being a Brit as well. But I think if Ndongo is as good as some people believe he is, then he probably will beat Ricky Burns. But what we don't want to see is any controversy on the scorecards, which we've seen a couple of times over in that same arena in favour of Ricky Burns. That's it for that, Bill. Moving over now to the last couple last fights to do, and we're going to be done, Barry. At the Play Football Arena in Swindon, Wiltshire, United Kingdom. Temuka Moocher's on this, Bill. 16-0, taking on Rob Hunt. 24-5 with 2 draws. Should be a good fight. 8-rounder there at welterweight. That's it for that one. Moving over now to a fight happening in the I can't really pronounce that, but in some sort of casino in the US, in Connecticut. One fight to mention on this one, really. Sullivan Barrera, 18-1. He takes on Paul Parker, 8-1. That's a 10-rounder at light heavyweight. Cassius Chaney as well, friend of the show, heavyweight prospect. He's in his 10th professional contest. It's a 6-rounder at heavyweight. He takes on Juan Good. That should be a decent win there for Cassius Chaney, a good, promising fighter. And the final bill to mention, just 2 fights I thought I'd mention on this one, to be completely honest. It's the Charles Harley Davidson Huntington, some sort of bill in West Virginia, USA. Bobby Gunn and his son Bobby Gunn Jr. both on the same bill. I thought we should throw that out there. Bobby Gunn 21-7 with 1 draw. His opponent yet to be announced. Obviously, we've seen him lose recently to a Roy Jones Jr. that's about 147 years old, and Bobby Gunn Jr. 8-0. His opponent yet to be announced. So both guys' opponents yet to be announced, but I thought we'd throw that out there as their father and son both fighting on the same bill, which is good. We haven't really seen that too much. I think that used to happen a little bit with Oliver McCall and his son. I think they shared a couple of bills, and maybe even Shane Mosley and his son. But all the best to both guys there, and that's really it. We've come to the end of all the talking here. We've done done the preview, we've done the review. We didn't have any news this week apart from the little thing that Barry Jones shouted out about Natasha Jonas. We've done the little talk on the production, my opinion on BoxNation's production, and that's really it. So before we end the show entirely, before we do all the, we finish all the talking and wrap up part 2, there's one last thing to do, and that's to welcome our second guest. But just before that, we're going to say goodbye to Barry Jones. So I just want to say, Barry, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you on the show for the entirety. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
Joe, always nice to talk to you, mate. We go back a few years now, pal, don't we? So it's fantastic, mate. And I'll anytime you need a wing man, just give me a bell, pal.
Thank you very much, Barry. And without any further ado, it's time to welcome guest number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a man who we've had on this show a few times now. He's in another big fight coming up next week. He's known as the Gorilla. It's, of course, Mr. John Ryder. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Joe. It's good to be back.
Yeah, man, it is always good to talk to you. So, John, last time we spoke, you was in sunny Portugal. Where are you now?
I'm in not so sunny Islam at the moment. I'm home for this camp, and it's a bit different to where I was when you last called me. Although it's not raining at this time.
Hey, that's always a plus, of course. Now, we spoke to you before the Adam Etches fight. That was a tough choice of opponent coming off of the, I'm going to hold my fingers up and say, loss, even though you should have really won to Jack Armfield, in my opinion. But yeah, you moved up in weight to take on Adam Etches. He moved up as well. You looked very, very good that night, by the way. You did a job on him, in all honesty. What did you make of that fight, by the way, John? Because we haven't really spoke to you since, of course.
First and foremost, it was great to get back to winning ways and pick off another belt along the way. Adam was a tough customer. I knew that he was always going to be tough and gritty and hard. And you look at the Jimmies and the people he trains with day in, day out, and it breeds talent, that gym. So I knew he was going to be tough. But what chin he had and what stamina. You know what I mean? At times in that 5th round, I thought he was going to go, and I hoped he would. And then in the 10th round again, and he lasted to the final bell and just kept coming. And I mean, people like that, they're the best dance partners. You know what I mean? They bring the best out of you and absolutely give it their all and make for a great fight.
Yeah, and he's known as, really and truly, he's known as the Bomber. That's his nickname. He's known to hit hard. But to be honest, you looked like the puncher in there. Obviously, moving up in weight, are you hitting a lot harder now, John?
Not that I've realised myself. I suppose I'm keeping my power throughout the fight now, where I was starting off strong and punching crisp and hard, and often wilting as the rounds went by and losing a bit of sharpness and power in the shots.
Yeah, well said. And also, just on Jack Armfield there, you should have got the verdict there. He recently fought Brian Rose, and many believe that he got yet another gift decision. Did you happen to see that fight? If so, who did you think won?
I did, so I wasn't entirely paying full attention to it. I was around my brother-in-law's house watching it, and I had my little girl's iPad with it on. I was taking glances, but it was just it's one of them fights. It's a bit subjective how you score it and who you see winning, and I mean, it wouldn't be fair for me to make a judgment. But listen, I'm happy that he keeps winning and keeps doing well, and if he goes on to do big things, I'm happy because it makes my loss to him not look as bad.
Yeah, fair enough. And now the reason we got you on, of course, you're taking on Rocky Fielding on April 22nd in the Echo Arena, Liverpool, Fielding's backyard. It's for the vacant British Super-Middleweight title. What are your thoughts on Rocky as a fighter, John?
He's a good fighter. He's a good all-rounder. He's tough, he's big, he does a lot of stuff well. But again, I feel that I've got the skills to outwork him and ultimately beat him.
And, I sort of looked down his record. He hasn't fought a southpaw in 4 years, which is quite a while. I'd imagine in the build-up to this fight, I'm not sure who you've been sparring with, but I'd imagine you've probably done some rounds with Craig Richards. Have you had any other guys in at all?
Yeah, we've done. I actually sparred with Craig Richards today in the 12 rounds. Sparred with him. Sparred with a few young pros. Brad Pauls, I think his name is, and Lindus Adofi, and we was up GB last week, sparring with a few of the lads there, Anthony Fowler, Joshua Buatsi. So you get them all in all shapes and sizes, and a lot of them are very sharp, and it's really really doing me good, the sparring I'm getting.
Yeah, good to hear, my man. And what is it like now being part of the super middleweight division? I know that you've said before that you needed to move up, you felt, but now that you've done it, you fought there, you beat a good fighter in Etches, and now you're in one of Britain's best weight divisions, especially domestically. There's so many big fights that can be made for you at that weight, a lot more than there was at middleweight. How does it feel to be a part of that, and also, physically to be a part of that now as well?
But you know what, it feels great because no matter worldwide in boxing, it's great to be in a great domestic scene. And at the moment, I mean, middleweight scene was great a couple of years ago when you had the likes of Murray, Macklin, Barker, then you had Billy Joe, who was at the British level, and you had myself, Eubank and Blackwell coming through. It was a great time. And at the moment, it just seems like there's a few vacancies there. You got Billy Joe, who's a world champion, and Langford is going to fight for a world interim title. But you look down the list and it's a bit open at the moment. But you look at like the light welterweight scene in Great Britain, and it's strong with the likes of Hara Davis, Josh Taylor, Jack Carroll. The list goes on and on. Do you know what I mean? It's but there's only very few weights in Britain at the moment that had that spark about them. And I think the super middleweight is massively part of it.
Yeah, I have to agree. And of course, you're fighting on the Martin Murray versus Gabriel Rosado undercard. That's a super middleweight clash, or it's thereabouts. Do you have any interest in that fight at all, John?
Yeah, I mean, I get on quite well with Martin, although I'm fighting his stablemate. Yeah, I think it'd be a great fight. It'll be a great fight for the fans. I read somewhere the other day that it'll be sponsored by Tampax because there'll be that much blood. But it's you know what? Yeah, it's just a real fight for the fans, and I mean, it's last chance saloon for both of them men, and you mean whoever wins that will probably go on and get another world title shot, but whoever is the loser there is where do they go? It's probably curtains.
Yeah, I think it is one of those fights, in all honesty. And there's two more fights I want to ask you about, John. I just want to get your opinion on. You know that I always like to throw a few good fights at you. Canelo versus Chavez Jr. coming up in 4 weeks' time. I know that you know boxing pretty well. I think you've probably got an opinion on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking into it. I think it's set for Canelo to win. I mean, what's reading that apparently Golovkin's gonna step aside and not fight Saunders so he can focus on a showdown with Canelo towards the end of the year. But listen, who knows? Chavez might throw a spanner in the works and really cause an upset. But I think you just got to go with Canelo for the skills and just to get a win.
And 3 weeks after that, Kell Brook against Errol Spence. This is a fight that, I've been looking forward to seeing Kell Brook in a fight. In a fight where you can say it's pretty much a 50-50. A lot of people actually putting Spence as a favourite. I was actually shocked to see that. I think in some bookies they've got Spence as the favourite here, which is a bit surprising. Is that another fight that you're looking forward to? How do you see that one playing out?
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. I've been lucky enough to spar with Kell a few times, and I'm actually a big fan of his style and what he does. He's a real natural. He does stuff that can't be taught in boxing. And like same with Spence, I'm a big fan of Spence. I watch a lot of his fights, and you see he's had a lot of good stand-up performances, like with Chris Eubank and people like that. But I mean, it's about levels boxing, isn't it? I mean, although he's shone in those fights, and Kell Brook's had a few mandatories that have not been fantastic. But these are his mandatories, and you have to take care of them. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of about now. Errol Spence, who is a mandatory, and I just think Kell will have the grit and experience to do it. I mean, although you can't give credit for a loss against Golovkin, but he did show some great attributes there. And despite what Golovkin said, I do think he had him hurt at a point and caught him with good shots and maybe made Golovkin think a bit.
Yeah, it's an intriguing one. It's obviously you've got Kell, that fight against Sean Porter, which pretty much sort of boosted his career up there, and then a few, as you say, the mandatories that he took care of, we didn't really enjoy too much of those. And you know, as we're saying as well, Errol Spence, he's been stopping people that really he has no right to be stopping. He's, you know, the job he did on Algieri was quite impressive, and also his name slipped me at the moment, but that guy, you know, the Italian guy, I think he's about 42. It's completely slipped my mind.
The Bundu.
Yes, you're a saber. Wicked. Yeah, but finally, John, the last question I've got for you now before I let you go. What will we see from yourself? What should we expect from yourself come the 22nd?
To see my arms raised with that British title around my waist, that's the dream.
As simple as that, as short and sweet as that, John.
Yeah, just a win for me, and that belt around my waist, that belt that I've craved for so long, and that I'm going to get at my third attempt.
Absolutely. The win is all that matters. Okay, listen, John, it's always a pleasure, my man. Best of luck on the 22nd, and God willing, the next time we speak, I'll be speaking to the new British super-middleweight champion.
Definitely.
Okay, now it's time to conclude episode 78 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Barry Jones has been the fantastic Barry Jones. This week's show, if I'm not mistaken, has been the longest show we've done. So if you're still with us right up to this very moment, you probably deserve some kind of interim belt yourselves. Big thank you to our two guests, Tommy Langford and John Ryder, both guys in big fights next weekend. We hope that they get through those tests. Remember, we're now on Instagram as well as Twitter, both of those at BoxHard Podcast. We'll be back next week with another big show as always. Until then, take care.